So Altadena is a historically Black neighborhood community. It was impacted in the 1960s when redlining was happening in all the areas, and Altadena was a safe space in which where people could move without having to deal with all of the other things that were going on in the space. And since then, their families have stayed here for generations. We are a really tight-knit community. We're very special, like everybody knows everybody. So even when folks do kind of come in, it's like, it's just a conversation with either, a friend or an aunt that's going to figure out and like understand who is who. I think because we have been impacted in many ways historically, what I found to happen like really quickly is like the level of grief was not just from the fires, but it was also the level of grief that the systems and all of the life issues are also like compounded onto the recovery of the fire. But even before we get into the recovery of the fire, just the grief and seeing the level of grief and seeing my community go through this on top of all of the other things that we've worked with and tried to work through before, it was just another layer of, how do we build something so that when folks are ready, that it's something is already built. There's already some pathways. There's already conversations. There's already, when you were talking about the trauma-informed care, like there's already spaces to which we can lift our community by understanding what our community has been through before the fires and understanding what is going to heavily impact the Black and brown and most vulnerable community on top of what the fire is also going to do, and the additional work and the additional gaps we need to fill to make sure that our community isn't, falling through the cracks.
And also you understand the love language of your community, which is so much of what we look for when we walk in. And I think for outsiders, like if you're not listening for that, it's really hard to figure out how to serve that community. But your community. Our job is to teach you, is to support you in the disaster piece of it and the language of it. But I think there's so many things that are so similar in the approach, not the communities necessarily, but in the approach on Maui. So can you speak to that as well, Nicole, like how important that is? Or for those who are unfamiliar, some people are, with the history of Hawaii, or why there would be a trust gap as well?
When you have in fires generational ohana that have lived there, for 21 generations, and they live, 16 ohana deep in one house, gladly and lovingly, and then systems like FEMA can't handle that, right? I'm still today trying to support people in generational housing that could not get past maybe 2 of those 10 ohana into the FEMA system. That's just one blip of maybe that's the first line of mistrust. And then you just start compounding all the other things. Like in Maui specifically, we fluctuate, but at times we have the second to third highest cost of living in the world. Mm-hmm. We have the highest energy costs. We have the highest rents in the United States. Before the fires, we were like fighting with New York and LA and for highest rent. Now I think we've been at the top of that list for at least a year and a half on highest rents in the US. And so all of that compounds. In Hawaii, 68% or more of homeless are Hawaiians. So there's just a lot there. There's a lot there to show up to. And the harm reduction that just comes from those systems not working, or even if they're mistrusted and that people are still using them not working. I did a crisis call last week and then followed up with them on Saturday. They're a man that goes by they, but also goes by he, and also Hawaiian. And what they said to me was, I am Hawaiian, but my parents weren't able to raise me that way, and they raised me in the American system. But they were both alcoholics. And so that's, for him, that layers, right? And then the other day he had a panic attack. And when they called for support, something very familiar happened, which is the police got called. And luckily I live across the street. So at 11 p.m. I was able to go over. Normally I sometimes can't make that happen. And thankfully, I had a relationship with one of the cops, and we convinced them, even though the medics were like, take him away, he can't handle what's going on with him. He's not, they just judgment. He had called for care. And if I wasn't there, he would have gone to jail. Instead, myself and one other care worker were able to get the police to take him to the emergency room. And when I followed up with him the next day, he's just like, look, my parents couldn't even raise me the Hawaiian way because of what's happening in Hawaii. So I'm in the system, the U.S. system. I'm in the American system. I use it. I'm on SNAP. He just got kicked off of SNAP because he couldn't verify his work hours, even though he has them.
If people don't know what SNAP is, can you tell them?
Food stamps.
Yeah.
Right. And he's in fire survivor housing. And they said to me, I think it's like seared in my brain and my heart right now, is just like, even the American system isn't working for me.